On March 19, 1994, Damien Echols, one of the West Memphis Three, was wrongly convicted of murder, largely due to questionable testimony from self-proclaimed occult expert Dale Griffiths. Griffiths, a former police officer turned consultant, claimed expertise in identifying satanic rituals and cult activities. His credentials, however, were dubious at best. The courtroom listened as Griffiths described how Echols' interest in heavy metal music and the occult provided a window into a dark, twisted mind capable of murder. Yet Griffiths' qualifications came from a mail-order degree, not a traditional academic setting. As Griffiths' testimony unfolded, it became clear that the trial was less about concrete evidence and more about feeding the flames of satanic panic. His assertions drew on the community's deepest fears, painting Echols not as a teenager with eclectic interests, but as a figure of malevolent influence. The defense struggled to counter Griffiths' claims, finding themselves up against a tide of cultural hysteria that blurred the line between reality and fear. Dale Griffiths' words carried an emotional weight, resonating with a jury already primed to see evil lurking in everyday life. His testimony served as a linchpin in the prosecution's case, linking Echols' musical and literary tastes to the horrific crime. The fact that Griffiths had scant real-world experience with satanic crime did little to diminish his impact. The courtroom became a theater of imagination, where whispers of the occult overshadowed the need for tangible proof. Despite the lack of physical evidence tying Echols to the murders, the jury found themselves swayed by the narrative Griffiths wove. His portrayal of Echols as a dangerous outcast sealed the teenager's fate. On May 5, 1994, Damien Echols was sentenced to death, a decision resting heavily on the specter of satanic influence. Critics would later decry the trial as a miscarriage of justice, a case study in how fear can compromise the judicial process. The conviction of Damien Echols exemplified the era's broader cultural paranoia, a time when the lines between truth and fiction blurred dangerously. The Satanic Panic of the 1990s left a legacy of wrongful convictions and a haunting question: how many other lives were similarly ensnared by the unfounded fears of the time? As the trial concluded, echoes of doubt lingered, suggesting that the real story of West Memphis was far from over. In the years following the trial, new evidence emerged, challenging the original verdict. In 2007, DNA testing revealed no traces of Echols or his co-defendants at the crime scene. This revelation prompted legal experts and activists to rally for justice, arguing the convictions were based on hysteria rather than fact. Among those who championed their cause was filmmaker Peter Jackson, who funded further investigations. His involvement brought renewed attention to the case, casting a critical light on the judicial failures that had imprisoned 3 innocent men. Yet, the question remained, how could such a travesty occur? The search for truth in West Memphis began with a horrifying discovery. On May 6, 1993, the bodies of Stevie Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers, 3 8-year-olds, were found in a drainage ditch. This brutal crime sent shockwaves through the small Arkansas town, casting a pall over the community. Parents clutched their children tighter, while whispers of fear and suspicion filled the air. Damien Echols, a local teenager, found himself at the center of this storm. Known for his interest in heavy metal music and the occult, Damien became a convenient scapegoat. His eccentricities made him stand out in a conservative town rife with fear. On June 3, 1993, authorities arrested him, along with his friends Jason Baldwin and Jesse Miskelly. The charges were grave, and the community's thirst for justice was palpable. Jason Baldwin was just 16 at the time of his arrest. Unlike Damien, he maintained a quiet demeanor and focused on his artistic talent. Yet, his close friendship with Echols implicated him in the eyes of the law. Jesse Miskelly, 17, had an intellectual disability, which made him particularly vulnerable during police interrogations. Under intense pressure, he confessed to the murders, a confession riddled with inconsistencies and inaccuracies. The trial of the West Memphis Three began on February 24, 1994. The prosecution's case leaned heavily on Jesse Miskelly's confession, despite its many contradictions. The courtroom became a stage where fear overshadowed reason. Allegations of satanic rituals, fueled by the prevailing panic, took center stage, eclipsing the lack of concrete evidence. As the trial progressed, the defense struggled against a tide of hysteria and cultural prejudice. The boys' reputations were shredded by accusations tied more to their interests and social standing than to any factual basis. On March 18, 1994, the jury delivered their verdict. Damien Echols was sentenced to death, while Jason Baldwin and Jesse Miskelly received life imprisonment without parole. The sentences were met with a mix of relief and unease. For some, justice seemed served. For others, the verdicts felt premature, a rush to judgment influenced by fear rather than fact. On March 19, 1994, as the gavel fell, the West Memphis Three entered a new chapter of their young lives, one defined by bars and concrete. Terry Hobbs, stepfather to victim Stevie Branch, watched the proceedings with a quiet intensity. Though never formally accused, questions about his possible involvement lingered in the periphery. John Mark Byers, father of Christopher Byers, became a vocal figure, his grief and anger often clashing with the public's hunt for answers. Pam Hobbs, mother to Stevie, pursued the truth with unwavering resolve, seeking closure in a case that seemed to offer none. The narrative of the West Memphis Three is one of tragedy, both for the victims and for those wrongfully convicted. As the chapter closed on their trial, the broader implications of the Satanic Panic era loomed large, leaving a community and a nation to ponder the true cost of fear-driven justice. Yet the story was far from over. Secrets still lay buried, waiting for the light of day. In 2007, a DNA analysis introduced new questions into the case. Samples taken from the crime scene did not match any of the convicted teenagers. Instead, a hair found in the bindings of one of the victims was linked to Terry Hobbs, Stevie Branch's stepfather. This revelation shifted suspicion and renewed calls for exoneration. Supporters of the West Memphis Three rallied, their voices growing louder. As fresh evidence emerged, the certainty of the original verdicts began to waver. The possibility of a gross miscarriage of justice loomed large, demanding a re-examination of the case. Here's what Devil's Knot got right. The film's portrayal of the community's fear and misinformation captured the essence of the early 1990s Satanic Panic. West Memphis, gripped by anxiety, saw shadows where none existed. The movie accurately depicted how this hysteria influenced perceptions and fueled the rush to judgment. In a chilling scene, Pam Hobbs, played by Reese Witherspoon, navigates a town rife with suspicion. This mirrors the real-life atmosphere of dread and paranoia that descended upon the community. The film also showed the flawed investigation that led to the arrest of Damien Echols, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Miskelly. It highlighted the intense pressure on law enforcement to solve the case quickly, even at the expense of justice. This portrayal reflected the actual desperation of the authorities, anxious to restore a sense of safety. Here's what they completely changed or left out. Devil's Knot depicted the West Memphis Three as guilty, a narrative that new DNA evidence and witnesses have since contradicted. The film omitted the crucial development that testing in 2007 revealed no DNA from the accused at the crime scene. This omission left viewers without insight into the significant post-conviction discoveries that questioned the integrity of the original verdicts. Additionally, the film decided against showing the eventual release of the West Memphis Three. In reality, they were freed. After 18 years, following an Alford plea deal that acknowledged their innocence this pivotal moment, absent from the film, marked a significant turn in their long fight for justice. The investigation's depiction also lacked the critical detail that private investigator Ron Lax, played by Colin Firth, discovered a hair at the crime scene. This hair, resembling Terry Hobbs's DNA, pointed to an alternate suspect, a revelation that the film barely touched upon. By sidelining this discovery, the film missed a chance to delve into the complexities and missed opportunities of the real investigation. These discrepancies, while dramatizing the story, left gaps in understanding the full scope of the case's developments. The viewer is left pondering what else may lie beneath the surface, waiting for the truth to emerge. The film also glossed over the role of John Mark Byers, stepfather of one of the victims, who was a controversial figure in real life. In the actual investigation, Byers was a vocal presence, often seen in the media, and later became a suspect in the eyes of some. He even handed over a knife with blood traces, sparking further intrigue. Moreover, Devil's Knot neglected to show the Paradise Lost documentaries, which played a crucial role in raising public awareness and led to widespread support for the West Memphis Three. These oversights leave viewers questioning the complexities the film chose to simplify. The West Memphis Three walked free on August 19, 2011, after 18 long years. They entered Alford pleas, legally maintaining innocence while acknowledging enough evidence for conviction. Their release marked a turning point, not just for them, but for the justice system itself. This story reveals the fragility of truth in the face of fear. How power, unchecked, can warp justice, letting hysteria dictate the course of lives. The Satanic Panic of the 1990s stands as a cautionary tale, a reminder that what we see is not always what is real. Behind the curtain of authority and certainty lies the potential for grave error, a truth as unsettling as it is undeniable. Since then, awareness of wrongful convictions has grown, sparking reforms and advocacy for those ensnared by systemic failures. The West Memphis Three became not just symbols of injustice, but catalysts for change, a sobering testament to what can happen when we let fear, rather than facts, guide us. Follow Dark Crime Decoded for more real stories behind your favorite crime series and films. In the wake of their release, the Arkansas Supreme Court ordered DNA testing on the evidence. The results, revealing no genetic match to the accused, sent ripples through the legal community. This pivotal finding accelerated efforts for criminal justice reform, pushing for transparency and accountability in forensic science. In 2014, the Innocence Project reported that DNA exonerations had surpassed 300 cases nationwide. Each case not only unveiled an individual's wrongful conviction, but also exposed systemic flaws demanding scrutiny and correction. The lessons from West Memphis echo louder than ever, urging vigilance against miscarriages of justice.